people are now learning to understand and know their needs and then build their life around their needs and not on the aspirations or not on the forced consumerism that the advertising and the media and the, shall I say, aping each other, that is not being promoted now.
Today, we've got an interesting conversation with Anand Damani. He's a fascinating individual who intertwines philosophy, living life, and business insights, and running a business into a unique perspective of living a harmonious and fulfilling life. We're going to dig into his journey from a small town in India to becoming a thought leader who advocates for harmony between human needs and nature's value.
Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com.
It's kind of interesting to realize that the world is in perfect order. It's us humans who seem to be a little bit out of step. And we'll chat about that, as well as how to let go of societal pressures and just be content in the moment. Anand Damani's life embodies the model of a perfectly happy human being. He revels in the present and collaborates harmoniously with others to foster global happiness. This approach is rooted in his deep understanding of the absolute truth as imparted by nature to Sri Nagriji. He believes that true knowledge is that which is practiced. The rest he considers mainly academic jargon. He lives out this knowledge in every moment, just being in bliss and harmony with himself and others, and with nature. Listen in and see what we can learn from him and how we can improve our lives. Let's meet our guest. Welcome to Richer Soul, Anand Damani. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you for inviting me, and it's my pleasure to be able to chat with you and understand the concept of money, profits, business, and how does it all get intervened into a human being's life.
You know, it's funny, you're asking that question, but so few people actually ask themselves, how did that happen? And that's why we have our first question, which is, what was it like when you were growing up? And how much did your family and school teach you about money?
I grew up in a small town in southern India. It's a small town by name Shivakashi. It's a small industrial town where the supply of match sticks and firecrackers to the whole of India is done from. So that's an industrious town where every member of the family is involved in some small manual activity. The whole process of matching a matchbox was labor intensive, and the safety match that was the driving pin of all the economic activity around me, and I could see economics all around me right from a young age. Money was not something very openly discussed in either school, home, but I could see the impact of money all around.
Was it because I know, India being India, was money abundant in your home, or was it more of a struggle, or was it just kind of life just was?
It was not abundant there right away. It was not scarce either. We were thought of learn to live within your means. We were a family where savings was regarded as a good trait to have, and the concept of pocket money was there in some families who were connected and who were a little bit affordable. So I was among those families. We had on and off pocket money used to start, and then it used to stop, and then we used to get money when our relatives used to come to visit us. They used to give us as parting gift. A 100 rupee note was a very big thing on those days, and that's how we started our first interactions with money. It's something which you should give others, and which elders give to the younger people, and the young people have to learn to save it.
And it's funny, yeah, because culturally, money does kind of change hands family wise in India. You get Kirchi, right? And you also have to show respect to the elders, and then they give you, a little bit of money. And I remember that as a kid, always getting 100 rupee notes, which back then, I mean, as a kid, you go back, I was there in the early 70s. That was about $12, $15, which back then was worth a lot compared to today's inflation.
Yes, it was. It was.
You could go far on that because, yeah, you could actually go really far on that in buying things and enjoying things. But again, the parents made sure that you learned the principles of how to save it and how to be able to do
Yeah.
that. The other thing that I've noticed in India that I think is lost here in America is in India, there's an economy for every scale of society. And what I mean by that is for people who don't have as much in India, they still enjoy life and have access to going out to eat something, but they're not expecting to go out to eat to the same place that somebody who is extremely wealthy. And yet there's a culture and a system so that wherever you are, you can still enjoy the things of life at your level, so to speak, whatever financial level it is. Whereas here in America, it seems that everything's at the same level for the most part. I mean, granted, you can go to fast food or a fancy sit down, but there isn't a fast food for somebody who is struggling. Whereas in India, there's the equivalent of fast food for whatever your economic level is.
So that's a very interesting observation that you've made, and you've looked at things very closely. See, the European culture, when it came to the US, it was having those layers of societies. But Americans revolted against that basic culture that came from Europe. If you go to the mansions of the haves in the Americas, which are there close to New York, you have that place where there are a lot of ancient mansions. So there you can see the different parts of the building. One where there is an executive crafted custom made things, and then there is the bedrooms in the upper floors where standardization came in, and everybody was given that comforts. So the fast food, the roads, the automobile, not cooking in home, not having butlers, and on the go packaged food, that started in the US, and that made mass production feasible, and everybody was able to afford that. So that transformation was very, very interesting in the US also.
It is. And I think it has, in some senses, it's created a place where people who don't have as much, or even if they have, feel compelled to spend like they have a lot more. And that
Yeah.
creates a whole bunch of struggle. And social media doesn't help that at all.
Oh no, becomes a big pressure tactics. It forces you to the consumerism mindset, and then you have to start using things today for which you will pay later. The mortgage industry, the credit industry, the consumerism was the driving factor of the whole economy as such.
It was. And we are a very consumer driven society. But at the same point,
Yeah.
you all
Yeah.
have a choice. You can step out and you can say
Yes.
no, and you can live a very good life without being part of that if you choose to. And I think that's the part I don't know that people truly understand is that you can have a very good life without getting sucked up into everything.
Exactly. And that is where I think the new generation, where we call of purpose of life or meaning of life, what is it that I want? Those people are starting to think of minimalism as an alternative, as a better way of living. The size is minuscule as of today, but we can see that growing. People are now learning to understand and know their needs, and then build their life around their needs and not on the aspirations or not on the forced consumerism that the advertising and the media and the, shall I say, aping each other, that is not being promoted now.
And it is changing. And I think that's what happens. You know, the pendulum swings back and forth. And I think we went very heavy to consumerism. And now I think the younger generation is kind of learning to swing back. Not saying they have yet, just that they are going much
Yeah.
more so in that direction. And it's not everyone. Like you'll notice certain parts are swinging and other parts, other people are still going this way. And so it's not an equal
Yeah.
wave. But I am
Yes.
noticing more and more people are stepping away from, we don't have to do that anymore. We're not going to do that. And I think it's building
Yes.
momentum, which is kind of good. And that's kind of what we're going to chat about today is learning to, in a sense, step out of societal values and get more in line with nature's values and finding that harmony in life. What prompted you to get more involved in learning about philosophy and life and creating these rhythms?
As a young boy, I stumbled upon J. Krishnamurti. He was a Eastern philosopher who became very popular in the West. So, Jiddu Krishnamurti is a very popular person, and I enjoyed reading his books where he used to call of how East meets West and how the whole world needs both these things. You need the science and inventions, the affluence, the mass stuff production capacity for all the people to have those things, but having the prudence to use it in a way that is not destructive of the whole planet. So that whole concept of having an equilibrium where we understand that to be happy is not to have more, it is to have more than what you need, and having the mindset that is always available. You don't need to worry about it. So on a Twitter thread where I'll share those links with you later, where I try to explain that a human being is a union of an unknown self, unknown atma, or unknown some element that science has not been able to identify and fix and understand. And then this human body, where all the requirements, all the needs, all the basic things that make it work are quantified and required only on a timely basis. So, when we talk of water, when we talk of food, we can consume only a fixed quantity and only when the body requires that. You can't have more of it. Having more of it will create problems. But there are other kinds of needs that Maslow put it in his hierarchy chart. Those needs are basically of a different quality, They can't be measured. So today we are connected. Now we have an affiliation for each other. We respect each other. I respect you, you respect me, and that respect, I can give you enough of respect and still be left with respect in me, which I can share with every other person. And similarly, you can give me all the respect that you want to give and still be left with all the respect that you want. And we both can consume the respect that we give each other and feel happy about it. So the kinds of love, respect, belonging, achievement, being useful. So by having spent 1 hour between us, if we both feel satisfied, okay, we did a good job, we tried to make sure the other person felt good, and we have created something that will make a few other listeners feel good. That sense of achievement is what that keeps us driving.
It does. And it's the concept of not a fixed pie, right? I think a lot of people have this fixed pie concept that you have to cut it up. And if I give, then there's less for me. But in reality, it's not that concept. And when you change your outlook and you realize the pie can grow, or that it doesn't mean just because you give, like our conversation, just because we both give, doesn't mean any of us has lost anything. It actually means we both grow. And so that's kind of that expansive idea.
Yeah, the analogy that we give of a pie is good for all the stuff that is physical. So when we use analogies to understand things, we should know the boundaries of that analogy and how far it can work. When we have something that is going to be used by the body, that is all good to be thinking of it as a pie. If we have food and we distribute it to people, we have to make sure that the nourishment is done. The problem today in the world is not less food, it is having unequal distribution of food. So, on a holistic way, if we think about it, that is the problem.
And we waste a lot
Oh, that's
on top of
really
that, unfortunately.
see. Nature has a system of the food which is not consumed will automatically get consumed in making the soil more fertile. That is the natural process that is done. You have an apple tree, it gives lots and lots of apples. Those apples that are not consumed, they are made to make the land more fertile so that in the next season you have more apples. So nature works in a very seamless, methodical, beautiful design. Uh, we have understood parts of it, and those parts are driving our actions. If we understand the whole of it, then maybe our actions will change.
And it's funny because I've heard stories about eating, and this is the problem, I think, with our food system. The apple tree and the apple are designed to be eaten when they are ripe, because when they are ripe, the seeds in the apple are ready to be planted. So even if a deer comes and eats the apple, okay, the seeds don't get digested. The seeds pass through the deer, right? And then he deposits the seeds somewhere, and with fertile, you know, material that allows that apple tree now to be carried off and grow somewhere else. And that's happening all over the place. And that is a natural system. And I think the natural systems are truly in order. The problem is man has become confused. Man is out of sync with natural rhythms and natural life. And I think this is where the problems occur.
You're absolutely right. The problems is the incomplete picture. What a human being is doing is based on the information that he has gathered so far. So if we add more information to that, say Newton thought why does the apple come down? Why does the apple fall on my head? So instead of that, if he had thought, why did the apple go up the tree? Why was not the apple there in the shrub? So he would have given more thoughts, and maybe he might have discovered the principle of coexistence of everything on the planet.
And it's funny how it all comes together. It all works except when we interfere with it, which is part of the problem. The other thing is, I think we've been distracted, right? We've been distracted from the roots. You know, if you go back to the way people used to be, they could look at the sky and know what the weather was going to be, right? Or they could see how nature, and they were in tune with it. But I think today we're so busy and we're not living in nature. So we've lost touch with how all these things kind of flow together.
That could be a good way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it could be, as the population of human beings started increasing, we needed more stuff, and that was required that we understand nature, we use it for our satiation, for our fulfillment, for our nourishment. But we had to do that in a way that we were nourishing the planet, nourishing the other species, making sure that they were also getting nourished. And being a cultural organism, see, as you see the evolution happening from the greater apes to the human being, and from the reptiles to the greater apes, everything, the complexity was increasing. So for a complex system like a human being to be in order, he needs to understand. So wherever, whatever understanding is there, that is all helping him. What we need to do is improve the understanding in parts that are missed. Everything, what science is missing, we give science. What spirituality is missing, we give spirituality. What atheism is missing, we give atheism, because the whole has to be understood. And the potential of a human being is much more than what is required to be understood. So the axioms that we have built, they need to be questioned. So one lifetime is not enough to understand the whole existence, versus one portion of your lifetime, 15 to 20 years are enough for you to understand all that exists. And rest of the life you have to live in a way you make it easy for the other people to understand that.
And I don't think we teach this in schools, at
It
least
will
in
go
the
to,
United States.
no, it will go to the
It's
schools once some few people understand it. You understand it and you live like it. When people see in your living, you are always resolved, you are always comfortable, you don't get agitated, you like being resolved. If you just enter into a room and people see, oh, look, he has come, let's all be happy. So once that happens, slowly this will go into education, and the time has come because the earth needs that education. Unless we improve, the planet is in a very precarious position. So the need is there, so it will happen, and it can happen very smoothly thanks to internet, thanks to this way of disseminating information. Now nobody has control. Every human being who understands something can share it, and if someone likes it, he will reshare it, and it can go on. There is no New York Times which will control, no White House can control the dissemination of this information, which is good for everyone.
how do we live a resolved life?
Okay, so whenever human beings have the capability, it's their feature to think of two diametrically opposite things and believe both of them to be true. That is not a bug, it is a feature. This feature helps us build tradition and culture. So these cultures help us live in an organized way. Otherwise, we would be going around random. So, any society that is living today is in order because of some traditions that people follow. The double think that is there, the dissonance that is there, that every human being has to sit and analyze. Okay, what is my double think? What is my dissonance? Say, for example, I know that I am going to die one day. So, why not be prepared that I have done all that I need to do before I die?
And yet, at least in Western culture, you know, everyone is afraid of death, or when they approach death, they have a whole life of regrets of things they could have, would have,
Exactly.
should have done, and they haven't dealt with it. And actually, I was on a call not long ago, and that was the question, like, is there something, like, if you died tomorrow, is there something you're missing in your life? And I'm like, no. I mean, I surely want to live and experience other things, but there's no regrets. There's no missing. Now, that was not always the way. I had to figure out what those things were. And in some senses, the universe provided, even though I might not have liked it at the time. Looking back, I'm like, oh, now that makes sense. That allowed me to do this and that. And it was actually for my best interest. But I think sometimes we fight that too, but we
Yep.
don't even realize we're fighting it. Or maybe we're just ignoring it. And maybe that's the issue. I'd love to get your insights.
Yeah. So the problem is our body is there to work and toil. Our internal self is there to be in equilibrium and peace. So when we have double thoughts or double think, for a few moments we think this to be true and do it things that way, and then for a little more time we do the opposite things and we hope that is correct. So those two things keep confusing us, and that is what is the internal strife, and that is tiring, and that is much more tiring than the physical work. So once we understand that, okay, if my thoughts are running in two different directions and my thoughts are unlimited, they have unlimited energy, I am not going to be tired of thinking because I don't have to do anything to think. Thinking comes naturally. No child needs to be taught to think. It needs to be taught what to think. It needs to be taught how to make sure that thinking doesn't leave you deluded. So, not being deluded is what we need to learn.
And I think too often the systems we're taught is not how to think, but what to think. And those are two different ways of learning. Some people
Yep.
are taught critical thinking or how to think versus what to think. And then you have the ability to test, to discern, and to try and to experiment in doing that. But that's a different cultural value, which is kind of where we started. I think more and more we're going back to that little by little. Unfortunately, it takes probably, if I don't know how quickly we can do that. A person can do that in a lifetime. I don't know that society can do that in a lifetime.
What the society will do is the collection of what individuals will do. So, if individuals start looking at things in a holistic way, more and more people start looking things that way, that tradition, that culture is just round the corner. It's very easy to get to that place. Anything that we think that is tiring us, that is confusing us, we can immediately identify that. We put it under the rug, we shove it aside, we ignore it wantonly. That is what we are taught to do. And once we understand that that is not in our best interest, whenever we have a conflicting thought, we have Google, we have so much of information, we have so much of naturally known to us that this is making me feel good versus this is not making me feel good. So the words that we are using today are reflecting something in reality. When we say moral values or when we say you feel good inside, when you do philanthropy, when you help someone, what happens? What happens inside you that makes you feel good? So once we understand that those are real things, they are there in existence, they affect us, they are spread. When we see somebody happy, we get happy. When we see somebody is sad, we feel sad. We may not be connected in any way with that, but that connection of happiness and sadness that spreads, those are real things. They may not be as physical as this earphone, computer, but they are virtual things, but they are real.
It's very easy to comprehend. And yet, at the same time, I'm wondering how many of us actually take the time to think about it. In other words, you go to a movie, and a good movie has a ton of emotions in it, right? It takes you up and down, happy, sad, all these things. And the same happens in life, right? You can look at things and what's going on, and you can be happy and sad. But I don't know how many people take the moment to think, how am I affecting those around me, the universe around me? Am I bringing happiness? Am I bringing joy? Am I bringing sadness? Or am I bringing anger? Am I bringing envy? And what are the emotions that I'm creating in the universe? And also, along the same lines, how powerful are they? And how are they being absorbed by others? And how much of it is getting stuck? And I say that because, and I say this so many times, every time I read a psychology book, it's like, oh, that's a parenting book. The parents, you know, did things to the kids that stuck emotionally inside of them. And now that's stuck inside the kid, and the kid hasn't let go of it. Now they're 50 years old, still holding on to it.
That's what really makes the formation of the human being that is going to become the childhood. And in the childhood, learning is very open. They just take in information, they don't filter out information. They have that belief that their parents are their well wishers. Whatever they are teaching them is good and correct and something that has to be followed.
Today's episode is sponsored by Profit Answer Man Podcast. Did you know that most small business owners hate looking at their financials? It's one reason they may struggle with business success. The Profit Answer Man podcast helps them ensure they are profitable and can pay their employees and weather the storms we all have to face. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform.
Over generations, we have been doing those things, and this is a good foundation block that we have got. Now, what we need is just to fill in the gaps so that the total reality as it exists, once that is understood, everybody can easily remove his double think one thought at a time. That there's no urgency, there is no despair, there is no drastic, radical things to be done. Anything that disturbs me, anything that confuses me, anything that is making me feel uncomfortable, I just need to rethink those things, collect enough information, find out the two diametrically opposite things that I am assuming to be true, and either find out the third one that is correct and both of them may be wrong. One of them may be wrong, get rid of the other thought. It's a small exercise which we can do on a daily basis and slowly get out of this internal strife.
So it's the constant thinking and discerning and challenging your own beliefs too and saying, is that true? And it's that simple question,
Yeah,
is that true? And I think that goes back to, I believe that's one of Byron Katie's 4 questions. One of them is that true? And I think
yeah,
when we start challenging it, we will find more often than not that the story we've created is not real. It's a creation. And we
yes,
need to let go of the creation
absolutely.
and say, no, that's not true. I don't have to follow that or do that.
Yeah.
So, speaking of that, one of the things that I've noticed here, and since you're from India, maybe you can speak to this, is the concept of yoga. Like in the United States, yoga is turned into exercise. It's left its true roots of what it was meant to be. Can you kind of give us a little bit of background on what yoga should be?
So, yoga, as defined by the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, they are 192 aphorisms. The starting first verse of the aphorisms is Yogaschitta Vritti Nirodha. The purpose of yoga is to get rid of the delusions. So, to do that, you have to have a very healthy body. So, they start with the asanas and then they take to pranayam, which is breathing steps, and then they take to the next steps of pratyahar. So, there are these 8 limbs ending up with dhyana, dharana, samadhi. So, we can discuss that in detail, and it's easily available online. Physical fitness is a prerequisite. If you are ill, you can't contemplate and think on things because your body is in pain. So, having a healthy body is stage one. You are a union of the body and the experiencing self that is using this body to experience. So, without a healthy body, you can experience nothing. So, exercise is the first phase of it.
And can we go deeper into the other phases?
Yeah, yoga, then pranayam, then pratyahar. So these are the terms. Basically, I'll try to explain those terms, what they are supposed to do. First, if your physical body is fit, then you can regulate your breathing. So the breathing force, the vital force that goes from the atmosphere into your body, and then you can see that even though you have taken your full deep breath, there is abundance of breath all around. So you can keep breathing as long as your body is fit, you will have enough to breathe. So you have that feeling of abundance, and then you learn to control your breathing, to hold it in and stay, to stop your breath and stay, to regulate them going from the left nostril to the right nostril and then from the right to the left. So you do all those exercises, they clean the whole flow of energies. So now your body is fit, you are able to regulate your breathing, then you start focusing on your thinking. Whatever is not mine, should not yearn for that. Whatever is good, that I should do. Whatever is not an outcome of my effort, I should not desire for that. I should do things and then reap the benefits. So these are the cleansing thoughts that we have. So they create the feeling of confidence in you that you are rich. You don't have to worry for anything. You have a healthy body. You have your breathing in control. You can do things. There is abundance in nature. You can work on those things and create value. And then you start focusing on your relations. See, you are not alone. If you are born, that means you created two human beings to become mother and father. So your birth made them parents. You became sibling to someone. So you are interconnected. So you establish those connections, you maintain your relationship with them, you keep their distance, you give them privacy as well as you give belonging. So you understand those whole things. And then once you've attained all these things, then you start focusing on what is all this existence about? Why am I here? What is it I'm supposed to do? You get clarity on the whole of existence. You do the dharana, you focus on things, get to know the reality behind those things. So when you look at a pot, you are able to see how it was sand, how that sand was mixed with water, made into clay, how it was baked, how it became a pot. So when you look at the pot, you are able to see its full journey. How once the pot breaks, the earthen vessel that we see, how it breaks and then it is going to become sand again. So you see the spectrum. That way you start seeing everything around you in the full spectrum. And then you see yourself as a spectrum. Okay, I was born as a baby. I grew up. I had these thoughts. I had these experiences. So now what is it that I'm going to give to society which will carry my legacy? So that's the whole story about the full Patanjali Yoga Sutras.
And so for a lot of people, it's creating legacy. And we have a lot of business owners who also listen, and even people who are successful in other areas. Doesn't matter. It's about finding that right bit of harmony, so
Yeah,
to speak.
yeah,
And part of that, though, is we can, and this is where I think we've gotten out of sync, we can create systems and businesses and life where we can be profitable, but we also have a replenishing ecosystem. So we're not exploiting others. Like there can be this way of doing it that you can help others and help yourself. It's not, again, it goes back to the pie, right? Too often we think we're fighting over a small piece, where in reality, we can make the pie as big as we want, right? The universe is ever expanding, right? Science has proved that. We don't have a fixed pie. Everything is abundant if you look at it that way. But too often, we don't build our businesses, our life that way. I'd love to hear your thoughts of how we can do that.
oh, that's very, very, very interesting. So the whole concept of business, as we understand, we have to look at it again holistically from how it started. See, when human beings settled down as a society, there was division of work. Till then, there was no deprivation, there was no ownership. As hunter gatherers, we used to look for food, have food, nourish ourselves, protect ourselves. So protection was one of the most important thing when we moved from the trees to the savanna highlands. There are enough research about how our arms took shape, how our thumb came opposite to our fingers, which helped us to grip stones. Stones was the only weapon that we had. The community bonding was the only weapon that we had. And in the Savannah Islands, we survived as a group, as a tribe, we survived. As you kept moving around, there was no division of work. They used to, as a group, work, feed themselves, and just enjoy. Once agriculture started, settlements were there, there were division of work. There was something which person A had more than he required, and there was something that he wanted to take from person B. And that is how trade started as barter. So if I had, say, extra wheat and I needed milk, for me, the wheat was of less value and milk was of more value. So I gave wheat, I took back milk. So I always felt happy because what I have got is something that I needed. What I have given is what something I had surplus. So this is how basically exchanges started. And slowly it expanded, and then we started having some universal values to peg the value of all other things. It were some metal coins, some leather stamped rules, things like that started. So it is there that the concept of prices started coming. The value was there inherent in the material, in the stuff, but the price was a concept that was created by human beings, that was not there in existence. And slowly we started moving from having those metals to gold coins to paper currencies. So to keep the security, the paper currency was printed in a certain way that gave rise to a counterfeit currency business. So all sorts of things started, confusion started coming in. And then we thought of companies. That was again a notional entity. So you had stocks, you started trading in stock, you started buying portions of a company, then there was a market for that, then there was a commodities market, and then slowly we had this cyber stuff coming in, then now we have bitcoins. So all these are symbols. Symbols cannot give value. That is the reality. All kinds of symbols that we have that represent value, they cannot satiate. So right now, if we are doing business, whatever someone is selling is what he has in abundance. He doesn't have a need for that. And what he's taking back is what he needs. So there is an employee, he has time, and his time he is not able to value. So he applies for a job in Google. For Google, his time is more value. The dollars that they give is of less value. So they are happy giving him dollars. And they are happy having his time there. And the person who is working is happy giving his time and taking those dollars. So when this give and take is mutually beneficial, the business is happy, win-win for everyone. Now the confusion comes in where the person feels he is being undervalued, or Google starts thinking he is being overpaid. So that is the real crux of the problem. We have to be very transparent and clearly understand, if I am not valuable, then let's revalue your salary, let's revalue the stuff. So when we start changing stuffs, when we start having businesses, service as a business is now maybe around more than 50% of the economy is service industry. 50% of the economy is the product industry. And of late, this click up economies is coming up. Every subscription you take, 20 cents, 20 cents, 40 cents, $1, $2. So this concentration of wealth is happening now. All these big companies, they are sucking in small amounts from everyone. From morning to evening, if you think the kind of payments that you are making to the big corporations, for every click, for every second you use, for this software that you use, for this software you use. So this is the way the economy is going now. So what I see in future for the business and the economy is sustainability will be the key feature now. Every company worth its name will want to say that Our products are recycled, our products are reprocessed, we are taking care of the planet, and that is going to be the buzzword for the business community for the coming next decade or so.
And we're seeing that. I think part of the issue, and I work a lot with business owners, and where we see the struggle occurs is we don't have the right person in the right seat. In other words, we hire a person and they're coming in to do X, but they came in to do X because you wanted X, and maybe it wasn't a perfect fit for them, but they needed the money and it was close enough. And then as time goes on, you tell them to start doing A, B, and C, and they don't like doing A, B, and C, or they're not good at A, B, and C, or you thought they would be good at A, B, and C, and everyone gets out of balance. And it's funny. So I used to coach soccer with the kids,
Mhm.
and there was one massive lesson I learned. I stopped putting kids in positions because I thought they would be good there. I just naturally watched where kids went, and I created the position for where they were. And I figured out what are all my positions and where are all the kids naturally going, and how do I naturally get them to work together the way they naturally do things. And when we started doing that, instead of letting them do what they thought they wanted, or we just tell them, like somebody say, I want to play up front, and go, okay, you can go ahead and play up front, knowing full well they were never going to do it. Right. So I'd make sure there was somebody who said, I don't want to play up front. And I'd say, okay, you don't have to. But because of the way we saw how they naturally went, the person who said he wanted to play up front was at the back. And the person who wanted to play in the back ended up front. But when you can see that system come together and know how to weave it, it comes into harmony. And you just teach them a handful of little things of what to do when X happens. And we literally had 5 or 6 things. If we can do these 5 or 6 things well, we put this together this way. And these kids went from hardly ever winning to always winning. And they didn't work any harder. It was just that people were in the right seat with the right tools and information, and everyone knew how the system worked. And they naturally fell into the system. But what we did was to create the natural system of working together instead of, they say, well, you have to have 1 here and 3 here and 2 there. And I was like, I don't understand any of that. I know how to create a system where that just flows. And that's what occurred.
That's exactly the way nature works. It's just so beautifully, you have explained it very, very nicely. See, you don't need to regulate or create rules in every place. We need rules so that you are not in disorder. Falling in order is very natural, it just comes by itself. If a person runs fast and the other kid can't run fast, so they will naturally migrate to the flanks. When there is a game where you have to do a lot of running, the person who runs well will take up that position. You don't need to qualify them, create a race, and then decide, okay, if you are able to run at this speed, if you are able to run for this many hours. So when we try to make rules, taking all parameters, all the attributes into consideration becomes difficult. So you end up putting misfits. So now you have to create a job profile, a job description, and then you have to check off, okay, you done this course, have you got this certification, have you done this course for this many years. So these are all good to have things, but holistically, if you are able to adapt to the situation and work in the whole system, playing your part. When we study how a human body forms in the womb, you heard of stem cells?
Yes.
So they just go and check which part is not formed. So they take up that position. One cell becomes the eye, the other cell becomes the ear, and they are the same cells. So human beings have that innate tendency to occupy positions where they can fit best. You have to let that happen, create a boundary, create an ecosystem where that happens naturally. And business is the best example to practice that.
And I think that's where we end up in problems. We don't take the time to think and to allow that system to create itself. We try to force square pegs in round holes and wonder why we're struggling so much with that.
Yes,
It's
yes,
just
yes.
letting nature take its course
Yeah,
and creating the system that allows that to happen. And when you can do that, it works well. And that's what I have noticed throughout life. You just have to figure out how to make it work for you. And that's really the key. And that then everything flows. Too often we're fighting ourselves instead of just letting us be.
yeah. Being in harmony and allowing the system to be in harmony work seamless. You complement each other. When in a business, if all the parts are complementing each other, covering the flanks where the other person needs you, and allow him to cover you where you need him. So the cooperating mentality, once it comes in, it works wonders. It's the same team, just by change of the mindset from becoming competitive to become cooperative. It works wonders in business. I've helped a lot of businesses by just talking to all of them individually and then collectively as a group. We have a very good exercise that we do. We use some common phrases and ask them to write what they think. Suppose we had a session where in our office, when there are say about 15 people who are working in one of the projects, we ask them to write 10 keywords that they feel is what that describes the project. And then we use the thesaurus to map from one word to the other to the other. So we get an idea of the divergence of thoughts, the divergence of ideas they have about the same project. So that brainstorming session where we create that mind map, the word connectivity, and then we have an in-house software that we have built that charts the map through them, and it helps them understand, okay, look, this is one way of looking at it, this is another way of looking at it, this is the third way of looking at it, and all of you together are creating this project. This is a truck company that is buying refurbished trucks and selling them to make money. So how to value a old truck, how to find out what are the repairs to be done, find out what it will cost, and then how they will find a best customer so that you don't have a lot of inventory left. So once as a team they start planning, they come in with so many ideas, and it's just wonderful, and they enjoy working with each other.
And again, it's about creating that ecosystem. That's
Yeah.
literally what it comes down to.
Yes, yes, yes. That's very important.
It's time to learn the secrets of life.
What's your secret to living an abundant life?
I always understand that whatever my needs are, there is more in nature to fulfill my needs than whatever I'll need.
That's an abundant mentality. What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
I learned to be grateful to everyone around me very late in life, accept people as they are very late in life. I was trying to change people, now I started to change myself.
You know what? That's what I say. Very much so, right?
Yeah,
If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
I would ask him to be more open.
Yeah, we have to receive. The universe has everything we need. If we
Yep.
put down the barriers, it all happens well.
Yep.
If people would like to learn more about you, your writings and so forth, where can they find you?
I am on Substack, I am on LinkedIn, and then I have my personal website also.
Okay. And we'll put all those links in the show notes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
It was fun talking to you, Roth. I really wish you great success with the podcast and the business profit venture that you're doing, where you help businesses become profitable.
Are there any insights that you got from today's episode that you can implement in your life to maybe live a little bit more simply, to align with what you truly want? Instead of trying to make the universe bend to you, just understand that it happens the way it happens, and learning to let go and just appreciate the journey. I know that sounds simple. I struggle with this tremendously. So I get it. And that's why I continue to keep doing this, is just learning how to let go and stop trying to control anything and just be. It seems a lot easier if you can accomplish it. By the way, do you know someone who might appreciate this episode? Would you do me a favor and would you share it with them? That'll help you start a conversation with them as well. Next week, we have on Dr. Don Wood to talk about reprogramming your brain. He's going to give us some great wisdom on that. Have an abundant week. We'll chat soon.